come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble. I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Well, now this is going to be a pretty picture. This is going to be a sight to see. Because I've got codec on for Spreaker, and Spreaker looks like it's dead tonight. And I'm not getting anything out of Spreaker. But I am going to get something out of Facebook, and it looks like I am going to get something out of YouTube. So you know what? Spreaker's messing up, and for once, I don't really care. Because you know what? Even if only YouTube runs, or Facebook runs, and Spreaker doesn't, I couldn't care less, because anytime that I'm involved with technology, well, you know how that goes. Well, it looks like Mike's in chat. Looks like one viewer's in chat. Mike, do me a favor. Can you tell me if you hear anything? Now, you're in the SHR Media chat room, which means that theoretically you should be listening to Spreaker. So I want to know if you can hear anything in Spreaker from there. And if not, you're going to have to transition over to, oh, wait a minute. It looks like it's working on top. But the funny thing is, I'm not getting anything over here in Spreaker. Spreaker is acting. Spreaker is what broadcasts, what allows us to broadcast just in the audio portion. And the rest of the stuff takes place in YouTube or Facebook Live. So, if technology can screw up around BZ, that's what it does. Now, the funny thing is also, I've got the the headphones cranked all the way up. So at this point, I customarily, oh, you know what? I've lost something down here. I've either lost a bulb, because see this? This was on. Now it's not on. So either something's happening in the studio, or it's just the aura around BZ that's just not letting shit work. And I'd have to... I just have to guess that it's me. And Mike asks in chat, already we've got Dan in chat, Mike in chat, Mary in chat, and one viewer in chat. Mike is asking, which chat will BZ pay attention to tonight? Mike, there's only one chat that BZ pays attention to, and that's the chat that's right there in SHR Media. And just like Mary says, that one. I don't have the mental fecundity or the digitals available to go to Facebook and monitor that chat, or monitor the YouTube chat and monitor this chat and still do my show and keep a cogent thought about me. That's just not possible with old BZ. Now, with all the craziness that's been going on these days and this week, and again, I see Dan Butcher in chat. My apologies. Mary Brockman says it's perfect on YouTube. Coolio. Way coolio. Thank you very much. Oh, here's something interesting that I didn't know if you are aware of. I must have burned out the lamp bulb in this thing. See look at that. See, I can't even get my doggone lava lamp to go. And I didn't even get to introduce the show. Because all of this stuff seemed to bail on me at once. Dan says, no sound on Spreaker. YouTube and Facebook are fine. Okay, now that's in keeping with what I'm seeing on Spreaker, which is I've got the proper codec in there. And that was an issue before. And I'm watching Spreaker do the when you're on some various sites and you get the sort of the blue circle of death, Spreaker keeps going in and out of me. So you know what? I'm not even going to pay any attention to Spreaker tonight. If you folks want to listen, apparently you're going to have to go either over to Facebook Live, and that's if you want to find out where that is, that's SHR Media. Type into your favorite search engine SHR Media, Facebook, and you should be able to bring that up. Or if you just want to go on to YouTube, Mary says YouTube is working fine. Go over to YouTube, find the SHR Media channel, and you should be able to find what's going on right now. Well, this turned everything upside down. It was a last-minute show because there were 2 breaking news stories that just came out. And I had to rearrange the show for those things because I had a whole bunch of stuff. Obviously, I've got 33 tabs up tonight of things that I want to talk about. But, of course, I'm not going to be able to get to a fraction of them. Why are my doggone headphones, they are not producing much volume at all. And I'm wondering, when you guys are listening to me right now, are you hearing the show at a volume that you customarily hear it? Because now I'm wondering if somewhere in this thing I've either blown a fuse or why is it that I'm not hearing my headphones, that I'm not hearing myself or the show as loud as I customarily would? Hey, Alan is in chat as well. But you know what? It's time to soldier on despite technology. And I need a laugh. Come on, for God's sake. We all need a laugh. So let's start the show with something approximating that, shall we?
Thrown out of a bar in New York City. Now, when I say I got thrown out of a bar, I don't mean somebody asked me to leave. We walked to the door together, and I said, bye, everybody, I gotta go. 6 bouncers hurled me out of a nightclub like I was a Frisbee. Those big old bouncers that go home every night, watch Roadhouse, and beat off. You know what I'm talking about? Patrick Swayze's hitting another guy. For wearing a hat. I walk into a bar with a hat on. This guy real pissy goes, took off the hat! I'm like, what's the deal? He goes, I'll tell you what the deal is. Faggots in this area wear hats. We're trying to keep them out of a club. I'm like, oh, really? The only way we could tell down south is if they have their hair cut like yours. And he got all pissed. But he walked away, and I took the hat off, and like an hour later, I'd been drinking, and I forgot. You ever forget? It happened to me. I put the hat back on. The guy comes over to me. Now, I'm between 6'1" and 6'6", depending on which convenience store I'm leaving. I weigh 235 pounds. This guy comes over to me, poking me in the shoulder with 2 fingers, says, you're out of here. I'm like, I don't think so, Scooter.
Scooter.
And I was wrong. They hurled my ass. And then they squared off with me in the parking lot, and I backed down from the fight because I don't know how many of them it would have taken to whip my ass. But I knew how many they were going to use.
Perfect.
It's a handy little piece of information to have right there. Overkill. Well, they called the police because we broke a chair on the way out the door, and I refused to pay for it. And the cops showed up, and at that point, I had the right to remain silent, but I didn't have the ability.
Classic line.
The cop says, Mr. White, you are being charged with drunk in public. I was like, hi. I was drunk in a bar. They threw me into public. I don't want to be drunk in public. I want to be drunk in a goddamn bar, which is perfectly legal. Arrest them. Well, he didn't arrest them. Instead, they call in for my arrest record.
Uh-oh.
There's some good news. Satellites are linking up in outer space. Computer banks at NASA are kicking on. There's a telegraph in Fritch, Texas going beep 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 beep. This part takes a while. Shorthand. Beep. Now, I told you that story to tell you this story. When I was 17 years old, I was arrested for being drunk in public. Seemed to be a pattern. If you knew Morse code, you would already know that. And one DWI, which was a bogus charge because it turns out they were stopping every vehicle traveling down that particular sidewalk. And that's profiling, I believe. And the drunken public charge in Fritch, the arresting officer, who I had literally known all my life. You know what I mean? This guy lived 4 doors down from me in a town of less than 400 people. We've met. He takes me to jail. When we get there, he asked me if I have any aliases, and I was just being a smart ass and said, yeah, they call me Tater Salad.
Yep. "17 years later in New York City, I'm handcuffed on a bench with blood coming out of my nose. This cop goes, are you Ron Tater Salad White? You caught me. You caught the tater. You can take down those roadblocks now. I call my son Tater Tot. And Poot.
That's good, clean fun. That's Ron White. And if you ever or never have seen him and a bunch of the guys, okay, Spreaker's screwing up because I'm getting the blue circle of death again in Spreaker. So thanks for everyone here going over to either YouTube or Facebook because Spreaker is messing up by the numbers. There were 2 breaking stories tonight. I had a whole bunch of stuff all lined up, and then you have to go in there and tear everything apart. One of the first things I want to say is that for Father's Day, I got a new phone from my wife. And I had previously a Samsung Galaxy Note 4, which came out in whenever the hell that was, 2012, 2013, something like that. So this one is even bigger. This is the Note 8. And this is bigger, longer, taller, I should say. It's as wide, but taller. And so I received that from my wife. Now, just like everything else, you know how technology goes with BZ. And you know how Spreaker messed up with me tonight. And you know how I'm saying that, God, I'm not getting much volume out of my headphones. And then people in chat are saying, your volume is kind of low tonight as well. And all I did was come in through that door right there, that damn door right over there. Walk in, this was already on, and I just did the stuff that I normally do. And this is how. This is the thanks that I get from technology. So I've got a couple of new breaking stories to tell you, but in terms of happy times, or excuse me, happy stories and good times, which we will get to, I happened to be cruising through, this time it was Twitter, and I saw this, and this is always good for a laugh, because of this, subsequently I have some good stories to tell, but this, I played it, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months ago, and it's worth a listen, because I just like the tears streaming down cheeks when other personnel happen to hear this.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
Could he actually win?
No freaking way!
Which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Donald Trump.
There's not going to be a President Donald Trump.
Trump will not be president.
Trump will never be elected president of the United States.
Right. Not going to be president.
A man who will never be president of the United States.
Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States. Take it to the bank.
He will never be president.
Donald Trump is not going to become president of the United States.
She's at plus 19. Do you think the tapes made a difference? Of course! They made all the difference!
This race is over.
Hillary Clinton has raised more than double Donald Trump, vastly outspending him.
The presidency at about 89% for Hillary Clinton.
Your analytical model has never been wrong. Now projects Hillary Clinton to win presidential election.
100% chance. You still think she has a 100% chance of winning the election?
I do. And what would Donald Trump have to do to turn things around? Prayer and hope for a Festivus miracle.
This is CNN's coverage of election night in America.
CNN. The fight for the presidency.
Because we don't care. Oh, okay, have Kentucky. Who cares?
Kentucky.
Don't care about Indiana. Don't care.
Indiana with West Virginia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Mississippi, South Carolina, Alabama, Kansas, Nebraska, and Wyoming with its vote, North Dakota and South Dakota, Texas.
Up and down the middle of the country, all red.
Arkansas, Louisiana, the state of Montana, Missouri.
Yes. It was at 80% an hour ago for Clinton. What is it now? 68%. Okay, God damn it, I'm nervous.
Ohio.
Hold. Ohio, gone.
Idaho.
Okay, yeah, I don't see a fucking landslide here. I don't see it at all.
North Carolina.
God
That
damn
was
it,
on
if
the
we
air.
need Florida? Are you shitting me?
Florida.
It is fucking panic time.
Georgia.
Donald Trump, now the favorite to win the presidency.
Iowa.
New York Times now has it at 95% chance.
Utah.
Can still win, but in order to do so, she has to win Wisconsin. God damn it. Fuck.
Arizona.
Alaska.
Pennsylvania.
Michigan.
What a night!
How did this happen? I don't know how it happened. I just love to play that because there's nothing that says victory like winning, and nothing succeeds like success, and nothing sounds like a happy story except winning, right?
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Well, you've probably heard about this in what they here. This is great. Now, I'm reading this to you because you have to know how it is that well, you probably already know how leftists think, but I chose this article to show you how this is from NPR, purposely culled from NPR so that you can see this is the headline that they wrote and the fashion in which it was written. In narrow opinion, Supreme Court rules for Baker in gay rights case. And this occurred earlier in the week. In narrow opinion. By the way, what does NPR consider to be a narrow opinion? Now, a narrow opinion, because there's 9 justices on the court, a narrow opinion is 5-6, 6-5, and usually Anthony Kennedy happens to be the swing vote. and they're squeakers. So what NPR considers to be a narrow vote is 7-2. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled Monday in favor of a Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. At least, thank God, at least they put a fact in the first paragraph. But the 7-2 decision was on the narrowest of grounds. Wait, I guess a 7-2 decision in their world is the narrowest of grounds. Now, we'll come back to that. We will come back to that. And left unresolved whether business owners have a free speech right to refuse to sell goods and services to same-sex couples. Now, that fact is true, but you gotta take a win when you have a win. Nothing succeeds like success. Neil Gorsuch installed on the Supreme Court. Leftists fought it all the way. And this is one of those times when you thank your lucky stars that Trump did, in fact, get a SCOTUS pick. And he's going to get another one. I believe he's going to get another one this summer, perhaps a little bit later on this summer. The rumors are that Anthony Kennedy may be going away. And if that's true, then if you thought that leftists, Democrats, and the American media, I almost said American media faggots, that's Freudian. Slap me, BZ. And the American media maggots, I should say. If you thought they fought Neil Gorsuch, oh, just wait until you see the fighting that's going to be in store when Anthony Kennedy decides that he's going to step away from the Supreme Court. May or may not occur, but I believe that sometime later on this summer it really will. The issue with this particular ruling, this decision from the Supreme Court, is, just as they indicate, it didn't nail down once and for all, does a baker, any baker, or any individual that owns a business have a right to refuse to bake a cake, et cetera, for same-sex couples. What it did do, specifically, however, is say that the Bureau of Colorado, it was the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, they ruled in favor of the couple that wanted the baker to produce a custom cake for a gay wedding. And according to his religion, he didn't want to do that. Now, the important thing to remember about this decision is that the same-sex couple could have gone to any other bakery and probably gotten a customized cake. Now, this guy is an artist. He is actually an artiste who each one is hand-drawn depending on what it is that you want. Now, he never said, all he said is, I won't do a custom cake for you, but you can have any other thing that's in here that doesn't involve customization. And that, of course, obviously wasn't good enough. Now, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission excoriated the baker and basically trashed his religion. And this case is a reaction by SCOTUS. So it is narrow, I will admit, but it's a reaction by SCOTUS to the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. So will we see this issue raise its ugly head again? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we will. But as I indicate, you got to take every win where you can find it. There is also another Supreme Court ruling that came out that didn't get very much copy, and I thought I'd tell everybody here because it definitely falls into happy stories and good times. This is from the Washington Times. Supreme Court vacates ruling granting abortion rights to illegal immigrants, and what that meant was the Supreme Court on Monday erased a lower court's ruling that had granted abortion rights to illegal immigrant teens being held in government custody, ordering the lower court to reset the case. The ruling, delivered in an unsigned opinion, is a victory for the Trump administration, which had asked for the reset, saying the Circuit Court of Appeals bungled the issue last year when it established a right to abortion for illegal immigrants. So those are two wins. You got to take the wins whenever you can. In the meantime, the two breaking stories that came up, and I should be able to cover at least one of these before the bottom of the hour break, is this. And literally, about 2 hours ago, this just came out. This is from the New York Times. Justice Department seizes New York Times reporters' email and phone records in leak investigation. Federal law enforcement officers and officials secretly seized years' worth of a New York Times reporter's phone and email records this year in an investigation of classified information leaks. Now, we know that numerous leakers have contacted the New York Times, which is where they get their stories, and the Washington Post for that matter, in order to get stories out into the ether, and these stories have been predominantly anti-Trump. It was the first known instance of the Justice Department going after a reporter's data under President Trump. Notice how they emphasized that this is under President Trump. The seizure, disclosed in a letter to the reporter, Ali Watkins, suggested that prosecutors, again they write, under the Trump administration, will continue the aggressive tactics employed under President Barack Obama. Well, finally, just a squeaker of a factoid comes out there. Aggressive tactics employed by the previous administration as well. Because what journalists really didn't want to say is that Barack Obama did journalists in the United States no real favors and cut them off at the knees every bit as much, if not more so, than Donald Trump. Mr. Trump has complained bitterly about leaks, as well he should, and demanded that law enforcement officials seek criminal charges against government officials, as well he should, involved in illegal and sometimes embarrassing disclosures of national security secrets, which is pretty much why they need to be kept secrets. Investigators sought Ms. Watkins' information as part of an inquiry into whether James A. Wolf, the Senate Intelligence Committee's former director of security, disclosed classified secrets to reporters. FBI agents approached Ms. Watkins about a previous 3-year romantic relationship she had with Mr. Wolf, saying they were investigating unauthorized leaks. News media advocates consider the idea of mining a journalist's records for sources to be an intrusion on First Amendment freedoms, and prosecutors acknowledge it is one of the most delicate steps the Justice Department can take. Freedom of the press is a cornerstone of democracy, and communications between journalists and their sources demand protection, said Eileen Murphy, a Times spokeswoman. Now stop. I'm really curious what you would think about this, and I'm also curious about what Dan Butcher, who is a journalist himself, happens to think about this. This is a cautionary tale. Let me back up a little bit, because each action that occurs, the two actions that I just mentioned, the SCOTUS tale with regard to the baker, and this one, demand, essentially, in my mind, they demand certain changes. And let's go back to the SCOTUS ruling with regard to the baker. In my mind, what that opinion told the Colorado Civil Rights Commission is you were too overtly biased. So what you need to do in the future is make a decision, rule against a conservative, rule against anyone that you don't care for, but carefully parse what it is that you write and what it is that you say about these particular cases. So, in my opinion, that's what the Colorado Civil Rights Commission learned, or will learn, if they haven't already, about that decision from SCOTUS. Now, here, in this instance, where you have the DOJ and the FBI going in and mining information from a reporter's emails and phone, in terms of the First Amendment, yes, this is an extremely touchy situation. And I could see this readily going up to the Supreme Court, because anybody that has the ability to argue this on its merit, it would either be an epic win or an epic fail. But I know that there would be just a gaggle of attorneys that would want to represent the reporter in that case. Now, let me tell you also, because I've got a technology, oh my God, busy in technology. I have a technology story coming up later in the show that this kind of kicks off. Now, if I were a reporter, what this would tell me is maybe it's time to back the hell off of technology. Maybe it's time to take the cell phone, the smartphone, and put it down. Maybe it's time, all those emails, to put them away. And when you have things, when you have meetings, when you speak to people, you have a sort of a Mark I, Model 1 piece of paper, analog, write it down, keep notes, and then you put your notes wherever it is that you put your notes. And if you can't produce them, you can't produce them. And if there are consequences to be meted out, then there are consequences to be meted out. But again, to my mind, this goes to digital versus analog. It's the bottom of the hour. We're going to have a break. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. Don't go anywhere.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only, all-powerful, the Bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. shrmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and Insidious. Insidious. You know, we talked about this for, a good, for the last 3 years. And finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of...
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And you're right. It is the SHR Media Network. Wow, that's hot now. Woo! Now I'm going in the red. Weird stuff is happening tonight. Weird to the point where I didn't even get to read my intro. But that's okay, because I played some Ron White stuff, and that was funny as hell. Now, I read your story about the DOJ deciding that it's going to go into a New York Times reporter's digital files and ruffle around through some emails, and then also ruffle around through some phone records that are all digital, of course. And that's going to be going somewhere, but I'm just curious if it's funny how the DOJ investigates what the hell it wants, does what the hell it wants, when it wants to do it, and then conspicuously, in my opinion, avoids all sorts of things that it ought not to avoid. In my opinion, again, that's a Jeff Sessions issue. Jeff Sessions has the physical presence. I was a law enforcement officer. You have to put on your game face when you go out into the streets. And I had a game face at one time because you have to be able to control people in terms of physical presence, your voice, and then you escalate up in terms of force. But the mere presence of someone who has this sort of aura about them, and you've seen people who, when you walk up to them, and you meet them for the first time, one of the first things you think of is, I don't want to get on the bad side of this guy. Or sometimes you read somebody as, they're about as strong as a noodle. That's where I would place Jeff Sessions. Just listening to him talk is enough to irritate the shit out of me. And watch his non-presence as he tries to explain something to someone just is enough to cork my ass off. Now, having said that, because we know that we have two strong people at the DOJ. Jeff Sessions is obviously one of them, because we know that he's ruling the DOJ with an iron fist. Well, actually not. Rod Rosenstein is running the DOJ, if you ask me. Now, also, this is from SarahACarter.com. This is the second breaking story that occurred today. DOJ reneges commitment to provide Trump Russia documents to Congress. Now, let's see. This is what Devin Nunes has been asking for, let's see. Oh, that's right, over a year. And the DOJ still refuses to provide the documents to Congress, to the House Intelligence Committee. Now, to whom, then, if the DOJ decides that they're going to obfuscate and not provide demanded documents by our Congress, then to whom does DOJ answer? Well, let's see. It clearly doesn't answer to the president, and apparently it doesn't answer to the Senate, and it's not answering to the House. Let's go into the story. The Department of Justice reneged on a commitment to provide access to documents they promised to congressional lawmakers by Thursday morning. This morning. Instead, DOJ, if this isn't a weasel reaction, I don't know what is. Listen, DOJ issued a press release after midnight suggesting that they will only meet with a group of select lawmakers to discuss the matter on the same day as the North Korea summit opens in Singapore, according to numerous sources and a DOJ statement. Now, why? Let's do the math. Why do you think they would only do it on that particular day? Because they know that all eyes will be away from the DOJ in this particular issue, and all eyes in the media will be on the summit next Wednesday in Singapore, when President Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, meets with the little fat guy from North Korea. This is purposeful. Moreover, the Justice Department also issued new stipulations for briefing congressional members and limited the meeting with only the Gang of Eight, which is comprised of 8 leaders within Congress who are briefed on classified intelligence matters. These sources claim that briefing the Gang of Eight lawmakers restricts the dissemination and discussion of the documents that will be taken for review. This is what they've been asking for a long, long time. Although the DOJ contends the documents are highly sensitive material, stop. Each one of these Congress critters are cleared to see this stuff. Although the DOJ contends that the documents are highly sensitive material, in reality, these documents are not considered to contain high-level national security information. So while it seems the DOJ is complying, congressional sources say it means the documents provided may be highly redacted. And if you keep your finger on the pulse of redacted pieces of paper, what Congress has frequently seen these days from the DOJ and the FBI is a white piece of paper that looks something like this, only it's all black except for a little bitty teeny weeny section that's white. And that's redaction. A source familiar with the discussion stated the documents do not rise to Gang of Eight level material, requiring such strict rules that would limit the members to discuss the material with other lawmakers. Lawmakers are also questioning the Justice Department's decision to provide the documents early next week during the highly anticipated start of the North Korea summit. A senior Justice Department official announced the briefing is expected on Monday or Tuesday, depending on members' schedules. Now, remember what I said about Jeff Sessions? Let's talk to, and let's listen to Judge Jeanine Pirro, former Judge Jeanine Pirro, as she happens to say, gosh, what I have been saying about Sessions all along. Oh, and Sessions' excusers have been saying, and to a degree they're correct, well, Jeff Sessions is a great guy. He was a great senator from Alabama, and obviously he was an early supporter of Trump, so I guess that's why he got this position, although he recused himself when he didn't need to recuse himself. And further, Jeff Fucktit Sessions, just a question for you, sir. Why is it that you didn't tell the President of the United States up front, when you already knew this, that there were going to be issues of conflict, at least in your little paltry fetid mind, that there would be issues of conflict with regard to investigations that the FBI and the DOJ were going to take with regard to Trump, Russia, blah, 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 collusion, blah, blah, Rentune. You could have told him like an adult up front, but no, you decided that you're going to wait and then throw a monkey wrench into the system. Well, people like you to a degree because you're kind of sort of tough on immigration, and that's the first thing I hear from people that are Jeff Sessions supporters. But these days, you can't be a one-trick pony. And you're not even a good one-trick pony at that. Well, Janine, pick it up, would you?
Investigation staffed with the singularly most biased special counsel attorneys in American history. And since then, we have witnessed events unfold, which are so unbelievable, so unimaginable, you'd have to be wearing a tinfoil hat or a card-carrying member of the conspiracy party to even believe it exists. We watched a president claim he'd been wiretapped. The Democrats chuckled. But he was right. He was right. Prosecutors and FBI agents working to change the course of political history. A shadow government whose agenda is to maintain their own power and control. A deep state we thought existed only on the pages of novels. Alive and well here in the United States of America. We've watched in real time as text messages revealed those agents conspiring not only to interfere with the presidential election, but to then create the basis to overthrow a sitting president. $10 million and millions of documents later, nothing, I repeat, nothing has touched the president in spite of their claims.
Yes, and what do they have? As I've said for quite some time, the crimes, air quotes, these are air quotes, thank God you're watching instead of just listening on Spreaker, which took a dump on me today. Thanks, Spreaker, really appreciate that crap. Air quotes. Yeah, well, what that means is, yeah, Jeff Sessions, you need to go. You need to go away. And you need to go away very soon. And she's going to get to the reasons why.
Have Democrats found any evidence of collusion?
Yes, we have.
Sure they have. No, what I was going to say is, what have they found? They've found crimes, air quotes, crimes of process. Nothing having to do with Trump, Russia, collusion, or the election.
Maintain that there is evidence of collusion. And I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now.
And every time...
Well, if there's evidence, the big basic question is, DOJ, FBI, if the evidence is there, release the information. Prove once and for all that evidence exists against Donald John Trump. We're asking for it. The public is thirsting for it. Democrats, leftists, the American media maggots all want to see it. But all we're hearing is blah, 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 mealy words from the Democrats themselves. And we're seeing the DOJ and the FBI distinctly obfuscate and refuse to provide documents of any variety.
We hear more is coming. The deep state does nothing but continue to show how deep and dirty it is. The head of the FBI lies to Congress.
Oh, Jimmy the leak. Spread this far and wide. I started it here. You need to start calling James Comey Jimmy the leak. Remember, BZ pointed you there. Jimmy the leak, Comey. Hey, isn't that amazing that you're not hearing anything about his book tour anymore?
He even lies about the statutory elements of a crime because he wants to protect Hillary Clinton.
Said this a long time ago. There are two types of crimes, crimes of general intent and specific intent, and none of the crimes potentially that Hillary Clinton could have been charged under the USC are crimes of specific intent. And it was James Comey who said that she didn't have the intent. Well, guess the fuck what, Jimmy the leak? She didn't have to create intent as the body of the statute is written.
That same director conducts a laughable, make-believe investigation of his favorite Hillary with no grand jury, no search warrant, no subpoenas, where he sat back and watched as the accused destroyed evidence, deleted emails, with his cohorts in the Department of Justice.
And completely ignored, by the way, the DNC server and gave people immunity for nothing. James Comey, he negotiates like Democrats. He negotiates like Barack Obama. Every fucking thing for everybody else up front, and you get nothing in return. What the hell?
Hands out immunity deals without ever requiring that they testify. He exonerates the target before the investigation is even over. So biased that he allows the same FBI agents who exonerate Hillary to create an investigation against Donald Trump based on a fake dossier to create the basis for surveillance of the Trump campaign, paid for by the candidate they wanted to win.
By the way, wait until you hear after the break about Stefan Halper, the guy kind of like the weird no-nose guy from Harry Potter, the evil beast that shall not be named. Well, BZ just named him. Stefan Halper.
The FBI knew that Hillary Clinton and the DNC paid for that dossier that had no basis in fact. They even tried to get a friendly judge to take the case and issue the warrant by trying to set up a dinner party as a cover. That judge ended up recusing himself from the prosecution of Michael Flynn.
Imagine that.
For months, we've watched as the FBI and the DOJ have denied having any documents. They said there are no emails on the Clinton-Loretta Lynch tarmac meeting.
Yeah, until they were presented with a FOIA request, and the FBI said, oh, we can't find them, and the DOJ said, well, we can't find them until... Oh, the DOJ found some of them, and then the FBI found some of them, and the FBI then found some more.
But there were. They lied to us.
Precisely. Oh, they didn't prevaricate. Let's take it out in the open. They fucking lied.
We watched as members of Congress try again and again to get documents from the Department of Justice and the FBI, but they won't hand them over. They stonewall, and there seems to be no way to get those documents. And all the while...
I go back to the original question. Who can see the documents? Who should be able to see the documents? If Congress can't see the documents, if Congress can't decide how the country moves, then who's moving the country? Well, it must be the DOJ or the FBI or any of the other damn alphabet agencies, I suppose.
While the Department of Justice and the FBI sit back and watch as their candidate approved the sale of 20% of our uranium to Russia and then pocket $145 million for their so-called charity.
And we hear nothing about that. We hear nothing about that. Why don't we continue to hear about 4 dead Americans in Benghazi? How would you like to have been one of the family members of the 4 dead from Benghazi and to have heard Hillary Rodham Clinton kick them aside as though they really didn't matter at all? And America, you've forgotten about them. You've completely forgotten about them, like they didn't even exist, like they were nothing worse than just a piece of bubblegum on the bottom of your shoe, and you kicked it around for a little bit, and then you forgot about it, and you wiped it off and moved ahead.
All the while...
4 dead Americans.
While the Clinton Foundation receives hundreds of millions of dollars from people doing business with the U.S. government, our government. And when Jeff Sessions decides to recuse himself, Rod Rosenstein, a man we have never even heard of, appoints his pal, Bob Mueller, to investigate
No, sorry, Judgy Mueller.
Our president. And this week, we find out the FBI ran a spy operation, actually placing an informant, a mole, in the Trump campaign.
Stefan Halper. Let me spell the name for you so that you can use your favorite search engine to find out who this fucktard is. Stefan, S-T-E-F-A-N, Halper, H-A-L-P-E-R. There, now you know.
Before there were any...
You're going to know more after the break. You're going to know who paid him, and you're going to know who he was siding for at the same time working as a mole and spying on the Trump campaign.
Illegal grounds to do any such thing. It was a classic totalitarian third world tactic. This person has as much as been identified. He's engaged in skullduggery going back to Bush 41. My FBI sources tell me there would be no reason for him to even run into a Page or a Papadopoulos. And get this, he's disappeared for the last 9 months. Now, I want you to remember that you heard it here first. Any collector, their name for an informant working on a national campaign, must have a sign-off by the Attorney General.
There we go. There's the crux of the biscuit. And who do you think does that?
Here, that would be liar Loretta Lynch. Lynch herself would have had to have approved an informant on that campaign.
And we all know that Barack Hussein Obama was one of the stupidest presidents we've ever had. He didn't have a scintilla of intelligence in his little brain upstairs. And he really didn't care what was happening in the United States. He'd go to work and then play video games for a while and then walk back upstairs to the residence. So he didn't have his finger on much of anything. So Barack Obama, he didn't know what Loretta Lynch was doing. She was operating by herself, going solo, going rogue.
And if she didn't...
Bullshit. I have a story for that after the break.
Then the FBI under James Comey was even more corrupt, going rogue in their attempt to destroy Donald Trump.
Judge Janine, stop stealing my words, damn it.
But what, ladies and gentlemen, is unmistakable in all of this is that the single most dangerous person to the agenda of President Trump...
Got a question for you. I want to know if you think this is correct.
The Republican Party and ultimately to all Americans is the Attorney General of the United States himself, Jeff Sessions. The man has done nothing to make anyone responsible for the blatant corruption, the unmistakable perjury, the in-your-face obstruction of our laws that we've seen play out every day. He has fought the release of telling documents that would put an end to this horrible period in America's political history. Documents that would make clear that the criminals in this attempt to overthrow an American president. He's even argued that he doesn't want to release records of Hillary because she's now a private citizen. This man has done nothing to create confidence that wrongdoers will be accountable, answerable. He has done nothing to create confidence on the part of the American people in our system of justice.
You get him, Janine. You go get him, girl.
And with all the power and might of the Department of Justice behind him, he continues to do nothing. He refuses to take them out in cuffs. The most powerful prosecutor in the world, the man who holds the scales of justice in his hands,
is absolutely, resolutely spineless. He is a spineless wimp. He has no right to be in that. He should be immediately replaced. This was one of the worst appointments that President Donald John Trump ever made, period, end of statement. And he should have listened to himself when he was thinking early on, right after that January 20th, maybe I should have.
Hides behind the coattails of a Rod Rosenstein, a man we've never even heard of, who is in fact behind all of Jeff Sessions' decision, who is in fact running our Department of Justice.
Well, correct. Do you see Jeff Sessions running the Department of Justice? I don't.
The man who has the honor to carry the prefix United States Attorney General before his name, Jeff Sessions, is indeed the most dangerous man in America. Here we are at the...
What's that saying that goes something like this? The only thing that you need to make things fall apart, and I'm killing this quote, and somebody in chat will probably know it, and the proper attribution as well. All it needs for some kind of, for example, our constitutional republic to die is for good men to do nothing. And into that category, I would quite easily place Jeff Sessions. Here's one little funny tidbit before we go to the top of the hour break, and that's this. How is it possible that Rod Rosenstein, who really is running the Department of Justice, how is it that Rod Rosenstein gets to write the memo that goes over to Donald John Trump, which recommends that James Comey be removed from office, and then he bullet points all the reasons, and they're excellent reasons, I might add, each one, boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, all the way down, all the bullet point reasons why James Comey needs to be removed as FBI director. And then he gets to appoint Robert Mueller to create investigations into why did President Donald John Trump happen to... You see where I'm going with this? I bet you do. Let's come right back after this, and maybe I need to take a drink of water or a drink of vodka. Kettle One, anybody?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads against tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads against tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. shrmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. Insidious. You know, we talked about this for, for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. You are, in fact, listening to the SHR Media Network. Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, less than 2 miles that way, west, where the locus of evil exists. It resides in the capital of the state of Fornicalia, in Sacramento, where the odor of brimstone and sulfur issues forth at night, just as it is right now. That's what the locus of evil does. Well, you remember that all the Democrats, leftists, and American media maggots were saying there's going to be a blue wave, and it's going to occur real damn soon. Because remember, it was, let's say, January of this year when the Democrats were a good 12 damn points ahead. Well, that's wonderful, except now it's about 4 points ahead. And the margin of error is give or take about 3%, or about 3 points or so. So in the time from January to now June, gosh, what's happened? It's been, well, essentially win after win after win. Trump pardoning people, Trump pardoning a woman who was jailed for quite some time for a minor drug charge, when we can't even find documents over at the DOJ that Congress has requested. Oh, we have time to do that. We have time to get guys back from Venezuela. Trump managed to do that. We got guys back from North Korea. Trump managed to do that. We got Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. We got tax cuts. Trump managed to do that. And we got, those cheesy $1,000 going to Americans, and those are just crumbs, right?
From House Speaker,
just crumbs.
Newt Gingrich. He is a Fox News
That
contributor
blue
and
wave
author of the new book,
is
Trump's
rolling.
America, which is out
Rolling.
on Tuesday. Congratulations, Mr. Speaker. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Your thoughts on this Google search? You search
well, two things.
California Republicans.
First of all, I think that Google has an obligation to have some system of fixing things like this and being able to do it within a couple of hours. And I do think they run a risk that they're going to start getting hearings if in fact, this is used as an engine of left-wing propaganda. People are going to demand, I think, real reform. Let me also say, and Devin Nunes has been very courageous, but let me also say about California, I think John Cox is going to be in the runoff for governor. I think that makes an enormous difference.
Oh, oddly enough, stand by. I do have some information about that. Oh, Newty, you were right.
In California, both because the truth is Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom's not running that well. Californians increasingly, I think 65% of them now believe the cost of living is too high. The Democrats passed a huge gas tax increase. And I think,
oh, by the way, this just came out recently. 50% of the people in the Bay Area would like to leave that area because of high prices, taxes, and regulations. 50% of the people in the Bay Area. Isn't that odd?
John Cox has a real shot at changing politics in California.
Well, what about the midterms? So that's your take on Tuesday's primary. But, you know, there's been a lot of conversation that there's going to be this blue wave, that the Democrats are going to continue to get more seats. And you heard Nancy Pelosi say, I will be the next speaker, and when I am the next speaker, I will reform taxes. In other words, raise taxes and do away with...
Right, in other words, take away the tax cuts that were given to you by the Republicans.
President's tax cut plan.
Well, and her deputy said flatly he would raise taxes. It reminded me of Walter Mondale in 1984.
I hope you guys got a break, by the way. I found a $200 a month plus in my monthly check. Isn't that odd?
Or saying, I promise you I will raise your taxes.
That's not a very good selling line right before the midterm.
Well, and I think for everybody in America who thinks that the cost of living is too low, the Democrats are a great party for them because they will raise taxes, as they have in California with this huge gas tax increase. I actually believe we are closer to a red wave than a blue wave. Now,
listen to that. We are closer to a red wave than a blue wave. I tend to believe Newty.
If you went back to December, frankly, I was concerned. The huge generic gap. We had not yet passed the tax cuts. Things didn't feel right. People were upset that they'd had a year and things hadn't been accomplished. But starting with passing the tax cuts, with what President Trump...
Thank you so much for joining us. Your thoughts on this Google search? You search
well, two things.
California
First of
Republicans.
First, our deputy said flatly he would raise taxes, that the cost of living is too low. The Democrats are a great... actually believe...
Come on, let's get up there,
we are
Newt.
closer to a red wave than a blue wave. Now, if you went back to December, frankly, I was concerned. The huge generic gap. We had not yet passed the tax cuts. Things didn't feel right. People were upset that they'd had a year and things hadn't been accomplished. But starting with passing the tax cuts, with what President Trump has done consistently on conservative judges, on deregulation, on trade negotiations, what he's done with North Korea, I think people now have a sense that we're moving in the right direction. And as a result, for example, in the Senate, I can't imagine, I don't know of anybody who's a serious student who believes the Democrats have any hope of winning the Senate.
Period. And let's stop for that right now. What has traditionally occurred when there is a sitting president and the first midterms roll around, it's generally the opposite party that walks away with the midterms, although now it looks as though that's not necessarily going to be the case. So the big blue wave is taking the nation by storm. Just ask a Democrat, a leftist, or an American media maggot. Okay, in California, for example, just this past Tuesday, 2 days ago, the California governor's race was over pretty quick. Now it's going to be Democrat Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. He's going to face Republican businessman John Cox in November. The guy that I wanted to see, Travis Allen, who is an actual conservative, he doesn't play in California, so he didn't go anywhere. So Democrats are they're targeting 7 Republican-held House seats in California, and they're those that Hillary Clinton carried in the presidential election. They want to take the House in a big blue wave. But wait! Because of California's weird-ass primary system in which the 2 top candidates advance regardless of the party, Democrats are actually worried now that an arseload of Democrat candidates might split the vote and allow all Republican runoffs in some of the districts. It looks like there's not going to be any Democrat shutouts in November. So now, here in the Fornicalia State Senate, in a recall election led by the California Republican Party and predicted on his support for an unpopular gas tax increase last year, voters, this is important, voters in Orange and Los Angeles counties, Orange County, you may not know, is relatively conservative. Los Angeles County is about as conservative as, Bill Maher, let's say. But Orange and Los Angeles counties tossed Democrat State Senator Josh Newman, kicked him out by a margin of nearly 60% to 40%. He's going to be replaced by Republican Ling Chang, whom Newman narrowly upset in 2016 to win that traditionally GOP seat. So the successful recall eliminates the Democrats' 2/3 supermajority, at least in the California Senate. This is California. This is where this happened. And they're screaming there's going to be a blue wave. Now, over in what we have in the 32nd District, there's a guy named Tony Mendoza. And he seems unlikely to win back the seat he resigned earlier this year after there was an investigation that he made unwanted sexual advances toward a bunch of employees. Now, Republican Rita Topalian won a special primary in California, while Vanessa Delgado leads the crowded field of Democrats in the Democrat-leaning Los Angeles district. But amazing. And it looks like Topalian, by the way, is going to face this guy named Bob Archuleta. And he was running 4th in the special primary, but 2nd to a regular primary. You have to know how leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots think. Now, I found this article by a guy named David Ferris in The Week. And this says a lot because more and more, like I say, I read what leftists write. I read leftist blogs and leftist newspapers, and that's why I bring this now, because you need to know how they think and how they craft their thoughts. And this is from The Week, which is a left-leaning rag anyway, but David Ferris wrote, Democrats are totally blowing it. Things are looking up for President Trump and his Republican Party, while both Trump and his congressional allies remain staggeringly unpopular. Bullshit. Recent polling indicates that they might skate by with a narrow House majority in the fall and even pick up a seat or 2 in the Senate. This is astounding. They're actually admitting that the blue wave, maybe not so much. A blue wave? They're going to pick up seats in the Senate? No. Analysts now think the Democrats' chances of retaking the House are no better than a coin flip. And now this, just in and of itself, is stunning. Democrats have to clean up the midterms. Instead, they're barely muddling through. And if they fail to take control of one or both chambers of Congress, That future-altering catastrophe can be traced right back to the moment in January when they decided, and this is how leftists think, when they decided to cave on the fight over the Dreamers and started disastrously cooperating with the president and his allies. Where did you see any cooperation from the Democrats to the Republicans, I ask you? BZ didn't see much of that at all. At the beginning of 2018, Democrats held an enormous advantage on the generic congressional ballot, almost 13 points. That's what I said, 12 points. Okay, now he's admitting almost 13 points. Democrat partisans were downright giddy about the possibility of a truly ginormous blue tsunami wiping Republicans' arses right out of both the House and the Senate. That enthusiasm was based on real achievements, what they considered to be real achievements from the opposition, defended vigorously by leaders who seemed to understand the greater-than-normal stakes surrounding fights with the Trump administration. While they lost the fight over the GOP's donor enrichment tax law, the public disliked the bill. The Democrat Party, along with its energized activists, had won a shocking victory over the summer by halting the GOP's efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act, swept to huge victories in the November elections, and then humiliated the president and his allies by winning the Alabama state seat, Senate seat vacated by the person we were talking about earlier, Jeffy Sessions. The president had also pulled the pin out of another grenade in September when he gave the popular DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, 6 months to live, making hundreds of thousands of dreamers or immigrants brought illegally to the U.S. as children vulnerable to deportation because of the GOP's ongoing inability to fund the federal government of the United States for more than 5 minutes at a time. Gee, just like Obama, Democrats set up a high-profile battle over the law to coincide with another budget battle in January. While immigration overall is a difficult and complicated issue, DACA is not. The public supports the Dreamers by extraordinary margins. According to a January poll, 87% of Americans in California want the Dreamers to stay in the United States. That was a BZ editorial just for a moment. It was a slam dunk for Democrats who could have hung President Trump and his allies on the hook of their own cruelty. Instead, after briefly shutting down the government on January 22nd, party leaders panicked and capitulated, with 33 Democrats in the Senate pocketing long-term funding for the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, and hoping for a one-on-one showdown on the Dreamers in March. When the Senate failed to pass bipartisan legislation to address the crisis, Democrats came away from this fight, this critical fight, with Jack. Since then, the party has returned to its accustomed role as a group of simpering, pragmatic deal makers. Now, let me ask you, do you quantify the Democrats, leftists, and the American media maggots all wrapped together in a little crumbly bunch? Do you think that they're simpering, pragmatic deal makers? Yeah, again, bullshit. Dozens of House Democrats voted for a $1.3 trillion spending bill in March, only to see Republicans get to work on stabbing them in the back by trimming billions through an obscure process called rescission. Trimming the budget bad. Then, in a truly bewildering display of stupidity, 17 Senate Democrats also voted to roll back key provisions of the Obama-era Dodd-Frank law, which placed restrictions on large banks and sought to prevent another 2008 unraveling of the financial sector, instead of humiliating the GOP's robber barons. A group of Democrats, including, mysteriously, Mark Warner of Virginia, Tim Kaine of Virginia, who was running for president, by the way, Janine Shaheen, New Hampshire, and Maggie Hassan, New Hampshire, joined their GOP colleagues in handing the president one of his coveted wins in return for a giant pile of rocks. This is how leftists think. This betrayal was flabbergasting. Not only did Democrats not win any policy concessions on this or any other issue for their votes, they now will jointly own any future mayhem that stems from loosening critical financial oversight policies. But it's not just that institutional Democrats seem to have lost their 2017 fighting spirit this year. The president is also benefiting from normalcy. Ooh, let that sink in for a second. Despite the ugly, bewildering spectacle of rage, incoherence, and abuse staged by the president on his Twitter machine every day, the world is still spinning. And that's because despite all the president's bluster, the policy status quo from 2016 remains almost completely untouched, despite instigating what are thus far minor spats with Mexico, Canada, and the EU. The Trump administration has not actually started trade wars that could unravel the underlying arrangements of the World Trade Organization or disrupt business for more than a few industries. The president yaps all the time about the trade deficit with China, but has not yet pulled the trigger on any moves that would spook the markets for more than a few hours. That's correct. The market has not tanked. The market has always been correcting up to this point. He inveighs against NAFTA. By the way, what do the cartels in Mexico call NAFTA? They call it the North American Free Drug Trade Movement. They're happy as batfuck that they can move tons of their product through railroad cars, through trucks, knowing all full well that there aren't nearly enough ICE people to stop and search this massive drug highway. Drugs north, money south. Thanks to NAFTA. Thank you very much. That was another editorial by BZ. His torching of the Iran deal hasn't caused any real economic ripple effects yet because our European allies are busy trying to hold together the remnants of the agreement America casually torpedoed. And well, they should have. The president's continental partners in chaos were unsuccessful in putting maniacs in charge of either Germany or France in last year's elections, thus far avoiding a fresh crisis in the Eurozone. For most people, the tax law that was passed in December 2017 barely touches them at all. Remember, $1,000. That's nothing but crumbs. Some people have seen a bit more take-home pay, while others have watched those gains disappear into the GOP's slow-motion sabotage of Obamacare. Despite a broad sense of the law's unfairness, voters don't feel it the way they would feel a recession or an expensive, endless war. What does that tell you about leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots? That they want a recession. They want an expensive, endless war. And they want staggering deficits. Congress's historic lack of productivity might actually be an astute strategy in the sense that they are doing nothing. Republicans avoid messy policy fights on issues where the public largely backs Democrats and their ideas. Stop. Dave? Historically speaking, for decades, blacks and Hispanics have not enjoyed this much employment, as I said, in decades. Likewise, for working people, the president's unprecedented abuses of power inside the executive branch are a distant concern whose true consequences may not be felt for years. Few people understand or care about the norms governing FBI investigations. Oh, wait. I told you I'm going to get to the FBI. I'm going to get to the FBI. I'm going to get to Stefan Halper. Oh, don't you think I won't? As long as the economy keeps humming, many voters might be content to give these Republicans another 2 years, even if they sense that something is amiss inside the swamp. And something is amiss inside the swamp. There's somebody with a spigot and their handle on it. This is why it's so critically important that Democrats in Congress recapture their gung-ho crisis attitude from 2017. No more victories for the president on policy issues that can wait until Democrats are back in charge. No more offhand comments from Chucky Schumer about how great Mitch McConnell is. The president seems to be spoiling for an election eve immigration fight. Give it to him. Raise the stakes. Remind your partisans that we are in the midst of a potentially democracy-ending crisis. The only existential threat was 8 years of Barack Hussein Obama. Schumer and Nancy Pelosi should be on TV every day warning voters about the president's corruption and abuse of power. Come up with an actual immigration policy that's bigger than the dreamers. Pick someone to counter the president's daily barrage of paranoid propaganda on Twitter. More Jeff Merkley highlighting America's horrific treatment of immigrants. Less Joe Manchin talking embarrassingly about his man bumps with our nightmare troll of a president. Democrats, you had this. If you blow it with an inability to sustain a brawl for more than 6 months, rest assured, you will be replaced with other lawmakers who can. And who would those lawmakers be who can? Who may replace the Democrats in November? Oh, that's right. Republicans. Funny how that works out. So let's go back here a little bit. Last week I was talking to you about John Brennan. And Dan Bongino happened to weigh in. I don't know if you guys listen to Dan Bongino very much, but I certainly do. He's predominantly on Fox, and he happened to weigh in about Mueller and Brennan and power. What do you say,
Bring in
Dan?
Dan Bongino, former New York City police officer, former Secret Service guy, host of the Dan Bongino Show. He's an NRA contributor and somehow is able to squeeze us into part of his day. Good morning to you.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, morning, guys. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Speaking of bad blood, John Brennan, who used to run the CIA, he sent out an ominous tweet yesterday after it was announced that the Department of...
By the way, what did I tell you last week about John Brennan? I told you that he voted communist in 1978. John Brennan voted communist in 1978. I told you that he was sworn in on an originalist copy of the Constitution, which did not possess within it the Bill of Rights. So that's basically John Brennan's way of saying that, you know, that First Amendment, that Second Amendment, that Fourth Amendment, that Fifth Amendment, and all the other amendments I'm not much interested in, because that is a purposeful choice that was made on his part. I also, by the way, had information from some people where he was serving as a chief of station in the Middle East that said he was a covert Muslim as well, and if nothing else, was at least a Muslim sympathizer, and that's the guy that Barack Hussein Obama thought would be a brilliant choice for CIA
Justice
director.
would look into whether or not the Obama administration did anything inappropriate. And it says this: Senator McConnell and Speaker Ryan, if Mr. Trump continues along this disastrous path, you will bear major responsibility for the harm done to our democracy.
Right.
You do a great disservice to our nation and the Republican Party if you continue to enable Mr. Trump's self-serving actions. So the question to you, Dan Bongino, why is John Brennan talking like that?
John Brennan's panicking, Steve.
Bingo, thank you very much. Stop just for a second. You have to ask yourself, you know, customarily in the past, history has indicated that when people retire, they go away, they've been replaced by somebody else in a new regime, a new president comes up, they do the right thing, and they go the fuck away. CIA directors, they decide that they're going to get on a rowboat and row down a stream, and they're going to go fishing, and they take a massive mug of shut the fuck up. Except these days, John Brennan does not possess that gene, and little Jimmy Clapper does not possess that gene, and Jimmy the Leak, Comey, he certainly doesn't possess that gene either. So... what the hell happened?
He's disgraced the intelligence community. He is the one man largely responsible for the destruction of Americans' faith in the intelligence community and in some people at the top of the FBI. Steve, Brennan started this entire debacle with Trump. We now know that Brennan had pretty detailed knowledge of the dossier. I'll walk you through this real slow. Okay. He knows about the dossier. He denies knowledge of the dossier. He briefs the Gang of Eight up in the Hill about the dossier, which they then use to demand the FBI start an investigation into Trump. It is that simple. This guy is the genesis of this whole debacle.
Well, who told him to do
it?
Who told him to start it?
We think, based on some of my investigation and...
Who do you think? By the way, answer that question yourself if you're listening live, if you're in chat or you're in podcast. Who do you think?
For the book we're putting together on this, that he just didn't like Donald Trump, but got information through unofficial channels, through people who were involved with British intelligence. They were basically using unofficial channels, Steve, to launder information like you would launder money. Because if they put it through official channels, something would have happened. You know what that one thing is? They would have had to verify the information before they used it, and they didn't want to because this was a political hit job. This was not an intelligence investigation.
I noticed that Ben Rhodes has got...
As I called it, it was a soft coup against America. It was a soft coup against a presidential nominee. It was a soft coup against a presidential elect. And it was a soft coup and is currently a soft coup against a sitting American president.
Silent. A lot of the people that was doing so much talking a year ago, they're questioning about stuff, they've seemed to have gone quiet. John Brennan sounds like a $3 pundit, just somebody just ranting and raving as if we're getting closer and closer.
John Brennan is impressed with himself in terms of his bantering about of multisyllabic words.
Hitting a nerve. Who are the people that would know if John Brennan was doing this? Would Clapper be one to know? Would Comey be one to know? Would the president be, President Obama be one to know that this was going on?
I believe John Carlin at DOJ, Jim Clapper, I believe Loretta Lynch had detailed knowledge. Of course, Comey knew what was going on in this. There was a very small working group of people who were involved in this political hit job on Donald Trump. But at this point, here's the problem, Brian. The reason Brennan's panicking and a lot of others have gone silent is they're not just worried about reputational harm. Brennan's disgraced himself. He knows history's not going to be kind to him. They're worried about staying out of jail. There were criminal leaks here, criminal leaks, felonious criminal leaks of of information. Someone was responsible.
Well, we may just be scratching the surface even at this point. Do you remember that Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf? Remember back in February, she warned people in her area, illegals, about an ICE raid coming and to do what you need to do to protect yourself. Well, the president mentioned her in this roundtable that he had last week when he had mayors and law enforcement talking about sanctuary cities in California, and he spoke about this mayor. She's now responding to the president. This was a couple days ago in the Washington Post, an op-ed. She says, Mr. President, I'm not obstructing justice. I'm seeking it. I wanted to make sure that people were prepared, not panicked, and that they understood their legal rights.
And now she's been notified that she's under investigation for having done exactly that.
Mayor, it is my duty to protect my residents. It is my duty to call this administration anti-immigrant fear-mongering for what it is, a racist lie. So she's saying it is my duty, Dan, to protect illegal immigrants.
Over citizens.
Yeah, shame on me. I thought her duty was to protect the illegal.
Okay, they're getting too far afield. Let's go back and ask, basically, the FBI did in fact place an informant, a spy, in the Trump campaign. Well, I would like people to hear what Judge Napolitano seems to think is the primary and critical question about the FBI having stuck an informant, a spy, into the Trump campaign.
President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, saying Mueller plans to wrap up the investigation by September 1st, he claims, but only if Mueller is able to interview the president by mid-July. A Harvard Law professor emeritus, Alan Dershowitz.
By the way, the president should never, ever, ever sit down with Mueller.
Dershowitz was on Fox and Friends this morning and explained why this may prove, he said, to be a double-edged sword.
If the president can put this behind him by September 1st, by sitting down in a limited capacity with questions that he can...
You want to hear a world turned upside down? When you have Alan Dershowitz, a former ACLU supporter, a massive leftist, voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton, when you see him continuously being interviewed on Fox News because he has a bit of common sense and the left-wing media and the American media maggots refuse to interview him anymore, then you know that your planet has in fact turned the fuck upside down.
Can answer, that would be a good thing. But, you know, the Mueller people could then say, oh, based on the questions and the answers,
we need to prolong it.
We need another month, another 2 months.
And this all comes as the president is demanding an investigation of what he calls a spy in his campaign. Well, joining us now is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano with the latest. Let's talk about this. Well, he calls him a spy, an alleged FBI informant.
Right.
Is it illegal to have an informant reach out to campaign officials? Does that mean he's investigating the campaign or the officials?
It's a great question. We don't know enough facts, but I can tell you what the law is. First of all, we know who this professor is, but Fox has chosen not to use his name, even though other media outlets have.
Stefan Halper, S-T-E-F-A-N, Halper, H-A-L-P-E-R.
If it is this person, he is a well-known intelligence resource that was utilized by the Reagan administration and both George Bush presidencies.
But wait, there's more. I'll tell you about it in just a few minutes.
If he was sent there by the FBI to gather evidence of crimes, that's the moral equivalent and the functional equivalent of a search under the Fourth Amendment. And in order to justify that, the FBI would need a search warrant.
And by the way, just to let you know, no, I'm not stopping for a break. We're rolling.
In order to get the search warrant, they'd have to present evidence of crimes going on in the campaign to a federal judge to get the search warrant. If all that happened, then as outrageous as this sounds, his presence was lawful. If it was short of that,
here's where it gets interesting.
That is, if he went there to chat with people to see what information he could get from them to report back to the FBI, and there was not a search warrant, it was an outrageous violation of the civil rights of the people in the campaign. The campaign as an entity doesn't have civil rights, but everybody that works there does.
Well, according to the New York Times, this, quote, informant was sent to have these discussions. Drinks, paid $3,000, for a paper.
Thank you.
Talked with the reports are Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, and Sam Clovis.
Right. Okay. So Sam Clovis left the campaign. George Papadopoulos has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI.
Crimes of process. These are all crimes of process. Nothing of substance, I should remind you.
Carter Page is sort of a notorious character that is sometimes in the middle of this and sometimes not. Well, at one point claimed he...
Neither of them. None of three of them. None of the three are even remote players in the campaign. They are peripherals.
Worked for the Kremlin. Another point claimed he worked for the CIA, and both of them seem to be denying it. The $64,000 question, Eric, is this. Who sent the professor? Was he...
Listen to this.
He sent by American intel, for which he is known to have worked, because of the insatiable appetite for raw intelligence about innocent Americans that the American intelligence community has? Or was he sent by the FBI to gather evidence of crimes? If he was sent by intel, it's wrong, but probably not criminal. If he was sent by the FBI without a search warrant, then President Trump is right. We have one of the greatest political scandals on our hands, because...
It was B, and I'll tell you those stories.
Who sent him? Would be the FBI under the Obama administration. Where did that information...
Thank you. The FBI under the Obama administration, Judge Napolitano.
Go. Did it make its way back to the West Wing and then to Hillary while she's combating with Donald Trump in a campaign for the presidency? I mean, that's the fear. I mean, if that happened, it's the type of surveillance that we have not seen or known about in modern American history.
Well, Judge, what I thought to say that this would be legitimate, that there were legitimate concerns that Russia was trying to influence the election, and that sources saw Carter Page maybe meeting with people. They picked up intel in the...
Okay, stop. Let's insert just a modicum of common sense just for a moment, okay? Because I'm who the hell I am. And boy, do I owe a bunch of quarters in a hat for tonight's show. But that's this. I'm an American. You're an American. The people that are working the president's campaign at the time are Americans. The FBI happens to be Americans. The people in DOJ, they're Americans too. We're all Americans on this bus. So why didn't Americans give a little bit of consideration to the other Americans as well? If they truly were resolutely in complete belief that the Russians were somehow interfering in the Trump campaign, why didn't somebody do something simple like this? Somehow contact the campaign, contact President Trump, and make some kind of a plea for, we believe that you may be compromised, and as fellow Americans, we're embracing you, and we want to stop the Russians. So, as fellow Americans, we're going to A, notify you that we think that you may be compromised, so that B, you can help us as fellow Americans to stop this process. Instead, Americans are fighting Americans, Americans are setting up Americans, so I have to ask you another fundamental question. Why would that possibly be? Was there any bias involved? Was there any political bias involved? And I think you know the damn answer to that as well.
Kremlin, this sort of thing.
Right.
And that is the basis for this investigation, to find out what the heck was going on.
The FBI had an option. They had many, many options and failed, I believe, purposely to make use of them for Americans.
Again, it depends who sent the professor. Yeah. Your analogy is sensible and lawful if he was sent by intel. If he was sent by law enforcement to gather evidence they want to use, or to gather evidence they want to use to get another search warrant, they need a search warrant to start that, to get him in.
And who will find this out? Will the IG Horowitz find this type of information out, or should it be Nunez in the House?
You know, when I read about this yesterday afternoon, I thought the president was asking for a criminal investigation. Instead, he got a rather low level, below the radar screen, sort of lukewarm investigation by the IG.
Well, maybe
Let me tell you one thing very important. If anybody and everybody that listens to me right now is thinking that this IG report, which allegedly is going to be coming out next week, is the end-all and be-all to all these investigations, let me tell you this. The IG possesses the ability to prosecute no one. This is just going to be a report. You understand where I'm going? Everybody that thinks that they're going to hang this hat on, oh, this is going to wallop everybody that's involved. There won't be a hell of a lot of walloping involved. There will be revelations, but penalties, that's going to have to occur in the future.
he wants more than that. Maybe.
if it occurs at all.
Lots of criminal investigations.
We'll see what the IG comes up with. If he comes up with evidence of crimes, he's ethically required to pass that evidence on to the prosecutors in the Justice Department.
And what about the Strzok text saying this was being run out of the White House? That seems to be a reference to the...
Oh, wait. Run out of the White House.
Russia investigation. But could that jump the shark and be go beyond that?
Let's stop right there just for a minute. Maybe it's time to do this and jump ahead. Remember, the FBI was spying, and the people that are refuting that are saying nothing but, oh, well, it's just a matter of semantics. Well, yes, there was spying that was going on. And does anybody remember when last week former DNI, that's the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, said on CNN that it was a good thing that there was an FBI informant spying on the Trump campaign. So what is that? That sounds to me like James Clapper, A, admitting that it was occurring, and B, saying that it was spying. But he's trying to couch it in terms of, well, it's just for the betterment of Trump. Trump should be thanking us for doing this, right?
The president tweeted this morning. He said, wow, word seems to be coming out that the Obama FBI spied on the Trump campaign with an embedded informant. Andrew McCarthy says...
Come on. You're giving me the blue circle of death here. Let's go. Okay, we're going to have to refresh here just for a moment, and then we'll be right back.
That's how I used to be before my friends started saying, lose the wrinkles. It's just a few little injections.
Okay, well, we're going to have to listen to an ad just for a moment, and I'm going to spare you of that. But basically, Clapper admitted that the FBI may have had someone who was talking.
He said, wow, word seems to be coming out that the Obama FBI spied on the Trump campaign with an embedded informant. Andrew McCarthy says there's probably no doubt that they had at least one confidential informant in the campaign. If so, this is bigger than Watergate. I mean, that is an extraordinary claim, and based on your experience...
But it's accurate.
What is the likelihood that it's true?
Well, I think this is hyperbole. They may have had someone who was talking to them in the campaign, but you know the focus here, and as it was with the intelligence community, is not on the campaign per se, but what the Russians were doing to try to instantiate themselves in the campaign or to influence or leverage it. So if there was someone that was observing that...
So no one decided it was interesting to investigate John Podesta and his close ties with Russia. John Podesta, remember, was the guy that came out in lieu of Hillary Rodham Clinton having lost on November 9th, early in the morning on November 9th, when John Podesta, not Hillary Clinton because she was in her cups, came out and said, well, maybe next time. That John Podesta, the DNC John Podesta. Oh, by the way, the John Podesta that happened to click on some clickbait, and he was the guy that helped get whoever invaded the DNC server into the DNC server, and people are saying it's Russians. Did they tell you that it was the Russians that also were trying to get in at the same time the Republican servers who apparently had better protection? Maybe the GOP servers were wearing condoms that day.
Sort of thing. Well, that's a good thing because the Russians pose a threat to the very basis of our political system. And I think it's hugely dangerous if someone like that is exposed, because the danger to that person, not to mention the reluctance of others to be informants for the FBI. And the FBI gains a lot of valuable information from informants. So to me, this is incredible.
Director Clapper.
Yeah, this is incredible. Well, do you want to hear something incredible? Sure you do. We got another 17 minutes till the end of the show. FBI informant Stefan Halper paid over $1 million by the Obama administration. Well, stop. Did you hear anyone say anything about that yet in the mainstream media, the American media maggots? Have any leftists said that? Have the Democrats said that? No, you haven't heard anything about that? Shoot, why would you? Because that doesn't look very good. FBI informant Stefan Halper, paid over $1 million by the Obama administration, spied on Trump aide after election. Less than a week after Stefan Halper was outed as the FBI informant who infiltrated the Trump campaign, public records revealed the 73-year-old Oxford University professor and former U.S. government official was paid handsomely by the Obama administration starting in 2012 for various research projects, air quotes, research projects. A longtime CIA and FBI asset who once reportedly ran a spy operation on the Jimmy Carter administration, Halper was enlisted by the FBI to spy on several Trump campaign aides during the 2016 U.S. election. Meanwhile, a search of public records reveals that between 2012 and 2018, Halper received a total of $1,058,161 from the Department of Defense. If I had a producer right about now, I'd be saying something like, by the Department of Defense. But unfortunately, I don't have a producer, so that's not what you heard. Halper's contacts, or his contracts, were funded through 4 annual awards paid directly out of the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment, ONA, established as the Department of Defense's internal think tank in 1973 by Richard Nixon, whose administration Halper worked for. The ONA was run by foreign policy strategist Andrew Marshall from its inception until his 2015 retirement at the age of 93, after which he was succeeded by current director James H. Baker. Halper's most recent award was noted recently by Trump supporter Jacob Wohl, which piqued the interest of Internet researchers who continued the analysis. The most recent award to Halper, for $411,000, I should say, was made in 2 payments and had a start date of September 26, 2016. 3 days after a September 23rd Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff about Trump aide Carter Page, which used information fed to Isikoff by Pissgate dossier creator Christopher Steele. Stop! This isn't in the article, but by the way, were you aware that a Yahoo News article was used as credible evidence by the FBI in the FISA warrant, along with the dossier sent to a FISA court judge in order to acquire the FISA warrant? And you see how this all dovetails together? You could not, in your wildest of fevered dreams, have written a novel even remotely close to something like this. Halper approached Carter Page, during an election-themed conference at Cambridge on July 11, 2016. 6 weeks after the September 26 DoD award start date. The two would stay in contact for the next 14 months, frequently meeting and exchanging emails. He said that he first encountered the informant during a conference in mid-July of 2016, and that they stayed in touch. The two later met several times in the Washington area. Mr. Page said their interactions were benign. This is according to the New York Times. As the Daily Caller reports, Halper used a decades-old association with Paul Manafort to break the ice with Page. Page noted, in the first conversation at Cambridge, Halper said he was a longtime friend with then-campaign chairman Paul Manafort. A person closer to Manafort told the DCNF that Manafort had not seen Halper since the Gerald Ford administration. Manafort and Page are accused in the Steele dossier of having worked together on the campaign's collusion conspiracy, but both men say they've never met. The second installment of Halper's 2016 DoD contracts is dated July 26, 2017, in the amount of $129,280, around 3 months before the FISA warrant on Carter Page was set to expire, following repeated renewals signed by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and a federal judge. On July 28th, he emailed Page with what the Trump campaign aide describes as a cordial communications, which did not seem suspicious to him at the time. In the email to Page, Halper asks what his plans are post-election, possibly probing for more information. It seems attention has shifted a bit from the collusion investigation to the contretemps within the White House and how or if Mr. Scaramucci will be accommodated there, Halper wrote. And I'm sure you're seeing this as getting together. Basically what's happening is this is sort of the male equivalent of the female honeypot. What you do is you take a mark, and both Papadopoulos and Carter Page were minor players on the field, and you kind of pump them up, and then you insert the belief that there's Russian collusion, which is what occurred in both of these instances, and then when consulted, they say, well, yeah, there's Russian collusion. I heard it from this guy. Okay, but wait, there's more. There's another story. The headline from this is, Deep State spy and Trump basher Stefan Halper, who we know was paid lovingly and quite an astounding amount of money, over $1 million, by the Department of Defense. Deep State spy and Trump basher Stefan Halper openly advocated for Hillary Rodham Clinton in the 2016 election while simultaneously spying on Donald Trump. It's been widely reported the Obama administration had a spy working inside the Trump campaign. The informant, Stefan Halper, was paid a sum total of $411,000 in 2016 and 2017 for work with the U.S. government that included spying on the Trump campaign. After the election, Halper pitched himself for a senior Trump admin position. And now this, Stefan Halper was promoting Hillary Clinton publicly while he spied on the Trump campaign. Both U.S. presidential candidates have repeatedly stressed the special character of U.S.-UK relations, which is reflected in close military intelligence and economic cooperation. I believe Hillary Clinton would be best for U.S.-UK relations and for relations with the European Union. Clinton is well known, deeply experienced, and predictable. U.S.-UK relations will remain steady regardless of the winner, although Clinton will be less disruptive over time. Halper, who served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs and Senior Advisor to the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice. Halper said, so he's already shilling at the same time he's inserted into the Trump campaign. He's already advocating for Hillary Rodham Clinton, but that wouldn't have any bearing whatsoever on how he conducted himself, or any agendized position that he would have had, or people knowing that, thinking that perhaps he was the right tool at the right day in the right year. No, people wouldn't think about that at all. Then there's this. We asked ourselves earlier, I got about 5 more minutes before the end of the show, so I have enough time to wrap it up like this, which is exactly how I wanted to wrap up tonight's show. Here's another headline. This is from Gateway Pundit. Former White House spokesman. Obama knew about Spygate. No FBI director would put spies inside of a campaign without the president's authorization. Obama knew the fish rots from the head down. Obama knew about spies planted into Trump's campaign. Obama knew about Hillary's phony dossier. Do you think for a microsecond that Barack Hussein Obama did not or was not cognizant of what was going on in his FBI, what was going on in his DOJ with Lerner? And we already know that Clapper and Brennan were both massive Obama sympathizers because of their shared feelings in the past and the way they were raised. Former White House press secretary for George Bush, Ari Fleischer, broke down why Obama must have known about the spies planted in Trump's campaign. In fact, Ari Fleischer says Obama authorized it. Ari Fleischer appeared on Fox News Outnumbered on Thursday morning to discuss Spygate, and he dropped this bombshell. Breaking, Press Secretary Ari Fleischer says, I guarantee the answer is yes to whether Obama knew Halper and others were deployed to spy on Trump campaign. Fleischer explained that no FBI director would put informants inside a presidential campaign without the President of the United States authorizing it. On Wednesday, President Trump was asked if President Obama knew about the spies inside his campaign. Trump said it was likely he did. And that would make it the biggest political scandal in U.S. history. Barack Hussein Obama. He's going to have his legacy after all. Now, do you begin to understand why it is that the FBI is obstructing as much as they are? Now are you beginning to understand why the DOJ is obstructing as much as it is? Why Brennan is concerned and worried? Why Clapper is concerned and worried? And why we really haven't heard all that much from Barack Hussein Obama, despite his fact that he said he was going to be in the fight doggedly right after his leaving the White House? And also, why haven't we heard from Jimmy the Leak, Comey? They're silent now. They're really not saying all that much. And like the tip of the proverbial iceberg, as I've said since last year, day by day, week by week, month by month, more is unearthed. And it is being unearthed in terms of the Democrats, leftists, and American media maggots being in collusion against the GOP and against conservatives and against a presidential nominee, a president-elect, and a sitting president in the United States of America. Do you want your conspiracy? Do you want your collusion? All you have to do is look no further than that triad right there. That's the one.
Monsieur has been locked.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzepp, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. You can shoot me an email and all sorts of FNS words like everybody else does. That's a leftist bz at shrmedia.com. My original music is by Possessed Tranquility at reverbnation.com. Promotional consideration is by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust, you can trust. And my newest sponsor, the Allahu Snack Bar, Little Bit of Mohammed in every bite. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, and thank you ever so kindly for listening tonight, live, partaking of chat, and listening in the podcast. Folks, you have a great weekend. God bless. Take care. Be safe. See you next Tuesday.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
night. Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.